Hey, welcome back to Fan Talk on Bronze Metalist. Today we're going to be talking about the brand new Listener album, Being Empty, Being Filled. Let's get to it.
Don't go on, your song lives on when I don't go on. The channel turns against the killers, no turning back. Thumbing my buttons nervously.
Hi everyone, my name's Kayle and welcome back to another episode of Fan Talk on Bronze Metalist. As I said in the intro, we're going to be talking about the brand new Listener album, Being Empty, Being Filled. Now, Listener is a spoken word band from Kansas City, and this is their 5th album total in their discography, and it's their first album since 2013's Time is a Machine. So there's been quite a bit of time between this album and their last one, a lot of space, and a lot of people were really yearning for a new album. I know I certainly was. I got into Listener a couple of years ago, and I've been wondering sort of ever since where their new material is. They've released instrumental versions of all of their last 3 albums, but nothing else, no new material, at least that I have access to as mostly a digital listener. So I was really excited to hear this when it came out. There is a lot to talk about for this album, so let's get going. And we got to get going with the first question of the 3 questions we ask here. What does this album get right? Well, from the very first note on this album, you know that this is going to be heavier than anything that's come before it. It starts off with just a big ol' slam, I guess. Not really, that's a death metal term, but you know what I mean. Pretty much every song on this record is Listener turned up to 11, to do a Spinal Tap reference. The classic post-rock sound is still there every now and then, but it's just amped up. Everything is a lot more intense than what we've heard before, and I think it really serves this album well. I think it's a welcome change, for the most part, anyway. On the vocal front, the mustachioed menace, Dan Smith, showcases a wider range than he's ever used before. He uses a lot more melodic singing and less of that really gritty shouting that he does on quite a bit of their other records. It's not a scream, it's just a very painful shout, and I'm sure that Dan's vocal cords have thanked him for that change. Now, these melodic vocals serve a more conventional lyrical and overall song structure on a lot of these tracks, which might have made this record a bit lackluster, but they didn't. Thankfully, this album remains just as intriguing as pretty much any of its predecessors, but there are a couple of problems that I do have with it. So we gotta ask, what does this album not do so well? I would have loved to hear some more trumpet or some more horn, whatever it is. I don't think it was a trumpet that he's been using, but Dan plays the trumpet or the horn or whatever on some of their previous, I believe their previous 2 records, Wooden Heart and Time is a Machine. You can hear it on a couple of tracks. It's this really brittle, kind of vulnerable sound. It's not necessarily played all that well, but it works very well with the overall sound of the band. And it pops up on Pent Up Jeans, which is the first track on the record, but as far as I've been able to notice, I've listened to it twice all the way through now, it's absent from everything else, just that one song. And I would have loved to hear a little bit more trumpet. I don't know why I like that so much in Listener. I also can't help but notice that there's a bit of autotune on Dan's vocals. Here and there, it's not an ever-present thing, especially on his spoken word lines, but absolutely on his melodic singing. There is just a hint of autotune that you can hear. I don't know if that was intentional, if they do that for effect, or if that was supposed to be more hidden, but I could hear it there. I'm not sure what you guys out there who have checked out this album might have noticed, but I feel like it's there, and it bothers me just a little bit. On the one hand, I can totally understand and respect why they would have put that on there. Perhaps Dan is not particularly confident in his singing voice. It could also be that they just wanted this album to be as perfect as possible. It's their first record in 5 years. It's one of their first big chances to introduce a new audience, a large new audience to their work with a new release. So they maybe wanted it to sound as good as possible. Like I said, this is their first release in 5 years, so there has been a lot of time where their albums are not popping up on people's feeds. For me, as a fan of Listener, I would not have minded if I didn't hear that auto-tune, if it wasn't there at all. I think that Dan's raspy, off-key way of singing has always had a certain charm to it. It's very relatable. It shows a lot of vulnerability, and that makes it easy to connect to on a personal level. You know, it's not this amazing singer. It's very personable, and that's something that I've always liked about Listener, and that's not missing from this album because of Autotune. I don't think that's something that can just be taken away, but I'm not sure. I wouldn't have put the Autotune on there, but hey, I'm not a music producer. These are minor gripes in the face of what is a really, really good album. So as we roll into our final question, should I listen to this album? The answer is easy, yes. Yes, you should absolutely listen to this album. If you're a fan or somebody who has never heard of Listener before, check this album out. It grips and enthralls just like every other piece of their work. Dan's words are, as I said here in my notes, words to live, lose, and love by. It's just great. I am at a loss for better adjectives for that. Maybe I should have wrote some down. Anyway, that's going to do it for this review. Thank you all for watching. I hope to be back next week with something new. In the meantime, please, if you like the video, give the video a like. If you really like the video, subscribe to the channel to get more videos like this. Also, check out my podcast, the Bronze Metalist podcast, that I do with my friend Jaron every week. We talk about a different album. Sometimes it's death metal, sometimes it's hardcore, sometimes it's metalcore. We talk about all kinds of different stuff. This week, we're talking about Slice the Cake's Odyssey to the West, so be sure to check that out when it shows up in your feed. You can watch it here on YouTube or listen to it on iTunes or Libsyn. I have links in the description box below. All right, my name's Kayle. This has been Fan Talk. I'll catch you later.